Okay, so assignment 3 in Unit 23 Work Experience, the final assignment in this unit, and this involves you completing your work experience placement and then following that reviewing the placement and all your aims and objectives that you set in at the end of assignment 2. As always, here's our specification. So you're carrying out a placement, you're recording your thoughts and experiences through a diary during that placement, and then after your placement you're going to present your experiences and activities and what you actually did to the rest of the group, and you're going to review your aims and objectives that you set. You're going to think about what you were good at, what you could develop, and think about your future developments. So we've got a lot of assessment criteria here. So P5 is for doing the placement, P6 is for completing the placement diary, P7 is the presentation that you'll make when you return to class. You'll present to the group about your placement experience, and then P8 and M3 are for reviewing your placement, and D2 is for justifying your strengths and justifying areas that you need to improve on and how you're going to develop those weaknesses. So quite a complex series of criteria there. So the assignment scenario: as a result of your placement, your supervisor has offered you a post. Before you respond, you must review your placement and the achievement of your targets. As part of their offer, they expect you to evaluate your experience, identifying your strengths and weaknesses, because they value reflective employees. It's really important that people can look at themselves, look at their experiences, and identify, what did go well or what can be developed. In order to support your development, they wish to know what they can do to support you improving and becoming even more effective. And that's actually quite realistic. A lot of good companies or workplaces will want to help their employees develop themselves. So task 1, do the placement. We have to be fairly flexible with this, in that we're not allowed to give you time out of college, so it will be up to you with our guidance. Victoria Reynard in the student services has been incredibly helpful. We have a small database of placements, but really you need to seek out and make contact with your own potential placements. We then need to vet those placements and check that they have the appropriate insurances. So this first stage of organising your placement is absolutely critical. So you go off, you do your placement. It could be that you do a couple of hours a week for a few weeks in a row, or it could be that you can work some weekends or evenings, or your timetable is such that you can fit in some placement time between your lessons. You may not, however, have permission to miss lessons for work experience. While you're on your placement, you need to complete a diary, a placement diary. Now, I'll give you a hard copy of this to take with you so you can jot down important things. There's a template in there, so it will help you or guide you into what to think about and what to write. Or there's an online version that you can type your notes up in. Either way, I will need to see your work placement diary, and it's really a helpful way of making you think, of making you acknowledge the experiences you're having and how you're finding things, beginning the process of evaluation. So on return, after your placement has been completed, pass and merit criteria. Pass requires you to look at specifically your objectives and targets you set in assignment 2. Did you achieve them or not? And briefly talk about the successes or the issues associated with achieving those targets. That's for P8. You then need to go into more depth and actually review your strengths and weaknesses. So it could be that you achieved one of these targets because of one of your strengths, and if you explain what that strength is. Or it could be that you didn't manage to achieve a certain target because there was an area that you need to improve on, or a weakness. So you need to think very carefully about what you were good at, what you were less competent at, and explain those things. The distinction element of this assignment then looks at how will you improve those areas you've identified as being a problem or a weakness, or something that you need to work on. These need to be very specific, so you just can't say I need to work on my communication. You'd need to give some specific strategies in what you would do in order to improve each of the weaknesses you've identified. So how would you go about developing your areas for improvement? What might be barriers to doing this? So it would be great, for example, to improve your coaching ability by taking a level 1 qualification, but these can be incredibly expensive, so a barrier might be the cost or the timing of this qualification. What do you need to do following this placement experience to accomplish your aim? So if you haven't achieved all your aims, what are the next steps for you that you need to take to get you nearer achieving that aim? And so you're projecting your future needs based on what you have or haven't achieved on your placement. So this is very evaluative, very analytical thinking for distinction. The last thing that you need to do is do a presentation to the group, and it will be kind of in two sections really. One, what did you do? What experiences do you have? What activities were you part of? Were there any things that you couldn't do? Sometimes there are restrictions based on health and safety or the level of skill that you might have. Were you given any responsibilities? And then secondly, what did you learn from your placement? And this can be of any kind of nature, whether it's a skills or a personal or an organisational or a insight really. I learned that actually this isn't the sort of job that I thought it was going to be. And work experience can be valuable, not just reassuring you that this is something you are passionate about and something that you could do and you are going to be good at, but it can also be insightful in telling you, actually, it sounds really great to be a physiotherapist or a masseuse, but sometimes the clients you work on are not your hunky, chunky males who are athletic and all good. You meet a mixture of people, and if that's not what you thought it is, eliminating that job is as much as important, as knowing that you do want to do something. So for P7, you'll be leading a presentation in front of the whole group, which you can use PowerPoint for, it's not a problem, and you'll be describing both what you did and what you learnt. The presentation might also include things that you found challenging. So I mentioned before, what were you or weren't you comfortable with? And if you've done your review section already, you already have this information. So it could be confidence, it could be skills, it could be working with certain age groups, things that you found challenging, and tell us why. And of course, in the future then, having had this experience, where will you go next? What route will you take next? What steps will you take next? So the presentation really quite naturally follows on from your process of review in Task 4.